How's it going? Good.
Mark, when you guys have gotten your big-to-big passing going, what have been some maybe common denominators that you've seen? Is it spacing, timing, quick decisions? What's involved there?
Certainly all that. The spacing's important, especially against this team. They tend to cheat, higher up the floor. And if you can get kind of the second level of their defense, then you can have some baseline cuts. And, Chet found one. We found Hartenstein in transition. We found Hartenstein against the zone. Hart found Chet on another one that was kind of a broken play. And so those are big plays for us. The guys are skilled. They can make those plays. And we obviously needed all the points we could get in that last game.
Mark, I think this was after Game 3 that you said something along the lines of what happened down the stretch of that game wasn't anything tricky that Denver was doing that you guys didn't need to reinvent yourselves. Like, what are they doing specifically with Shea? What is it that they're doing that maybe you've seen before, but it just happens to maybe throw a wrench in your offense?
I think the biggest takeaway of what they're doing through 4 games is that they're doing a lot. It's more so that than any one specific thing. They've thrown 3 different zones out against us. They've switched. They've had Jokic back, Jokic up to the level of the screen. They've just shown a lot of different looks and a lot of different schemes, and have pivoted pretty quickly to those in games, game to game and half to half, possession to possession sometimes. But, fortunately for us, we've kind of seen a lot of what they've shown. We've tried to teach against some of the things that they've shown, and hopefully we're improving as we go here. As they show different looks at us, there's only so many they can throw, and so we just have to understand what they're in, what they're doing, how best to attack it, and pull those tools at the appropriate times.
And how would you just describe Christian Braun's role in all of that?
He's a really good player, really competitive. He's physical. He's smart. He's in the right spots. He's shown great discipline on that end of the floor. He's hard playing, not only defensively, but on offense. Obviously, great runner, great offensive rebounder. There's a reason he plays the load of minutes that he plays for them. He's a really good player.
Mark, you're in this position a year ago, Game 5, tied series. What lessons did you learn last year that you could use today?
None that are like a through line from Game 5 to Game 5. It's more the cumulative wisdom that you get over the course of time. We certainly learned a lot of lessons last year, as we did the year before that, as we did this year. Joe, I think, asked me about the same thing yesterday. I understand there's a parallel, but we're a different team. Our players are more evolved. We have different players. Denver's a different team than a year ago. Than Dallas a year ago. So it's a completely different circumstance in the present moment. But certainly every experience, every win, every loss, everything we've gone through has helped, form us into who we are today, and we'll continue to go through that process and continue to try to grow.
I've seen a lot of big bodies at Nikola. Have y'all worn him down successfully? Because they don't have a lot of depth as it is. As this series carries on, do you feel like you're getting to him in terms of not only creating turnovers, but forcing him to miss shots?
Yeah, we don't have a ton of control over, his fatigue level. It's more we're trying to keep activity, and freshness on the court, as much as possible. He's a great player. Murray's a great player. They're a great offensive team that is capable of huge nights, individual guys and the team. And we want to throw everything we have at that, and we've done that so far. And the guys have stepped up and done a great job. But it's not just him. Murray last game, Dort had him, Kaysen had him, Caruso had him. It was like shift work, and same with Jokic. We've tried to do that to give those guys different looks, allow different guys to get more and more familiar with those players. But those guys are big-time players, and they're going to throw their best punch tonight. We're not going to be surprised by how ready they are to play the game.
What have you seen in the evolution of Kase Wallace in particular this year?
Well, I think the thing that you have to account for as you talk about his development was how high his baseline was last year. He started our first preseason game as a rookie. He was playing 20 minutes a game on a high-level team as a rookie. He closed playoff games for us last year. So his competitiveness, his physical gifts, his intelligence, all that stuff coming in the door was really, really, really good. And this year, he's just evolved as a more dynamic offensive player, and I think he's really learned the league. I think last year, Dort was like this. Those guys are just so competitive and reactive as competitors that when they're young, they're respectfully clueless, but they're just like really effective on effort and physical gifts. And then over time, you guard Jamal Murray once, and then you guard him twice, and then you guard him 3 times, and then you're guarding him 10 times at some points, and you really learn the league, you learn the opponents, you learn the tricks. He's in Dort's much more evolved in that process, but Kasen's on his track there, and I think being around Dort and Caruso, who are both highly effective but very different, has really helped him with that as well.
Coach, you've had 3 or 4 close playoff games. From a poise standpoint, what do you feel like you guys have performed, especially in the aftermath of Game 1?
The guys this has always been a very poised team, and just because you're poised doesn't mean you're going to win every close game. Denver's a poised team, and they'll lose a close game too. So the team has great poise. I think the poise that is most evident in this team right now is the way that we have recentered when we've gotten punched. I mean, this is a slugfest of a series, and you're going to get punched when you're in the ring, and you're going to throw punches when you're in the ring. And when we've gotten punched, the guys have shown great confidence, great poise to just stand back up and get back to the next moment, the next game, the next possession, and that's what we have to continue to do.
Coach, last year against Dallas, your bigs were on the bad end of it. Acquisitions kind of changed that. Just wondering how significant the change in bringing in iHeart and getting really good play out of J. Will has helped you against Joker.
Has been unbelievable. They've been unbelievable on both ends of the floor. They've been unbelievable all year. I've spoken at length about Hartenstein and what he's brought to the team. Nothing more than just his fit, how seamless his fit's been in the locker room with the guys. We've been able to take steps forward without any, steps backwards with him and Caruso. Jay Will's development, thinking back to where he started. I mean, he was playing in the G League in his rookie year, for long stints. He was like the last guy that year to break the rotation. He didn't break the rotation till the new year of his rookie season. And by the end of the year, he was starting for us. And then Chet, has developed in a significant way over time. And so great internal development, obviously a great add with Hart and great development by him throughout the course of the year. And obviously Jokic is as good as anybody. We need all those guys.
Anybody else? Oh, Barry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mark, you say, and it's true, every game is different in a series. But do you have an explanation for how the games are so different? I mean, the Denver scores in the whole game what you scored in the half. You've got 2 wins, 57 points difference, and how many you scored. What's the explanation for why things vary so much?
I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I know that's a fact. That's all I know. And I think it helps get the team prepared and be present to understand that. Every game's a new game. And I think it helps in the midst of the game when you're dealing with uncertainties, or when you're dealing with things that are changing or that are different from last game, or even half to half. It just helps you have a perspective and stay present and play through the 48. So aside from that, I can't explain it for you.
Is the proliferation of 3-point shots a factor?
Probably, especially with the scoring. Both teams were 1 for 30. I mean, the first quarter of the other night. Sorry to everybody that had to.
Anyone else? Thank you.
All right, thanks.
David, when you took over, you talked about kind of being excited to be more involved in the defensive side of the ball. Mark was just in here talking about the sheer variety of stuff you guys have thrown at them, from the different zones to kind of the base stuff with Jokic at the level to drop, whatever variety it may be. What has kind of the process been like in terms of your involvement, kind of situation to situation on some of that stuff, and just sort of the delegation of it as you guys have gone through these 2 rounds?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of my background, so it's not something that's new for me. And obviously, playing teams as good as these teams we've played, optionality is how you survive. So yeah, we've thrown different things out there. We'll do the same thing today. Tinker with things that we thought that worked. React the right way to the way that they spaced the court differently in the second half of Game 4. But yeah, we have to throw looks at Shea and Jalen that are different after timeouts, start of quarters, all those things. So yeah, that's something I'm into. You have to be careful. You don't want to go too far where you lose the spirit of your base defense, because your base defense is what gets you here throughout the season. But that stuff, to slow down the pace of the game a little bit, especially on the road, it goes a long way, I think, in staying in games. And you have to take chances sometimes, and sometimes it looks bad when someone takes a wide open shot because the rotation wasn't correct or whatever it may be. But the same thing happens in man. So yeah, I think it's part of my background, and also I think the guys have high enough IQ to take in a lot of information with one day in between games, and it's affected the games in a positive way for the most part.
David, throughout Nikola's individual successes, people always say he's the same guy regardless. Do you notice any differences in him when he's going through an uncharacteristically inefficient stretch, or is it still the same Joker you get every day?
No, he's been great. The same film session yesterday. Had a lot of opinions. Obviously, he wants to shoot the ball better and be more efficient, just like the rest of our guys. I wouldn't say anybody was efficient in the last game outside of their bench. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously it's a grind. The playoffs are a grind, and just like the regular season, you're gonna go through ups and downs. And I saw it with him in the Clipper series. It's coming. And, he's shorting a lot of his shots, and people are going to say it's fatigue. I think it's also the ups and downs of, how hard this is and playing every other day. But the efficiency, we know it's there. It's inside of him. The defensive rebounding's been great. We just talked about defensively, his levels and pick and rolls. So there's so many things with him that are major positives. You're running your whole offense through him mainly, getting people involved. So, the turnovers have to come down with him and our whole team. And I think the efficiency is going to come with him just because of the way he is and how he works daily. It's almost impossible for it not to come back. So he's fine. Our team's fine. 3-game series. So I think everybody's kind of on the same page here. We turned the page from Game 4, put ourselves in a great situation here. So he's excited for the game, as are.
David, I think you guys
grew up in the league, and becoming a head coach was kind of a long time coming, given your background. Did you envision when you became head coach having vets as actively involved as your guys are in the huddles that you've had in the playoffs? Was that part of the vision you had when you took the job over?
I think that's the vision anybody would want to have. You want guys with experience to have opinions, and I feel very secure about that. I know what I'm doing. I know the responsibility I have, but relationships with those guys goes a long way. And instead of just coach speaking at them, it's good to have a conversation about things to try to accomplish a goal. So no, that's been a major positive. I asked for that when I got the job, whether that's the short term or the long term, but that's what you want from your guys. And these guys have been through so many experiences. I've said this before, it would be foolish of me not to hear their voices and not to expect them to command some leadership in the huddles. And I mean, these timeouts are like 5 minutes long, man. So I hope they're talking to each other, because if they're not talking to each other, I have no idea. And then we go to the biggest play of the game, it's a minute 10, and they don't talk to each other very much then. So it's I'm all for communication with these guys, and it's a good partnership. It's a group that I've known really well for a long time, so that's been a major positive.
David, I think you guys were 0 of 17 from the corners in the last game, and I'm just curious how essential knocking down those shots are, not just to winning, but opening up the floor and making Jokic's life easier.
Yeah, those were great shots too. You look back at them, you can look at all of them. I would say
90% of them were wide open. I've said this before. I can't speak out of both sides of my mouth, and after we miss shots in a game, say, I can't believe you guys didn't drive back into Chet and Shea and Jalen and Isaiah Harden. You know what I mean? It's if we create a great shot, we have to shoot it. And there's a domino effect there. If you make shots, rotations are different, closeouts are different. No different with us. When their bench started to make shots, we had to adjust. That opens up the floor more for their main people. Now you're playing more of a man-based defense. It's more pick-and-roll centric, which is good for Shea. So, yeah, these things, they ebb and flow during a game. And I thought, we've been pushing that. Hey, be confident, shoot the shots that are available. Don't get late into the shot clock, because what that turns into is turnovers and runouts. And that's where they, really succeed. So I'm hoping to create the same shots. I'm just hoping that they go down tonight.
David, a lot of people talk about the physical fatigue of these quick turnarounds, but what about the mental preparation fatigue of the quick turnarounds? Is there any impact on that?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with how much you give them, because you're right. There is, you have a million ideas after you lose a game. It's funny how much easier it is after you win a game. To show a film session, everybody's high-fiving each other. When you lose, you're thinking about what can we do differently, and you have to be careful. You have to toe the line a little bit with how much information you're giving them. Yesterday in the film session was very thematic. Today was very specific with the walkthrough on the court. Because you want to maintain the positives of why it's 2-2, and why you've won games. Not to mention, I have a great team, and these guys have been through it, and they understand how confident they have to be to win these games. And sometimes it's just talking about that again. Hey, you are you. Like, go be you again. So that's the most important thing tonight for us. Bounce back from a tough loss, and be the Denver Nuggets again.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.